Thank you, Tawana, very much, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2012 COPS Conference. It's a pleasure to have you here. Our appreciation goes out to the Montgomery County Police Department for their participation this morning and a wonderful presentation of colors. I hope you'll join me for another round of applause for Officer Aubrey and his rendition of the national anthem. And Chief Menger, Tom Menger for the Montgomery County Police Department, who is here, thank you, and thanks for providing the color guard and for all your support. And welcome to Bethesda, Maryland. You're now only 11 metro stops from downtown. That's assuming that the red line running is without interruption. But in light of the restrictions on federal spending for events and conferences, this turned out to be the best possible venue for us to provide the kind of conference for our law enforcement profession that we wanted to do. If any of you had any muffins out there in the lobby, please do not tell anyone, particularly those sitting at this table. In all seriousness, as last year's conference came to a close, I knew this was an occasion I wanted to see happen again. Frugality is essential. And I think that while the budget has been trimmed significantly, the quality, sincerity, and usefulness of this conference remains completely intact. I want to thank the dedicated men and women of the COPS office for their efforts in producing what should once again be an informative meeting, one beneficial to helping your coordination of public safety programs and initiatives. And I'd like to ask all of the COPS employees if you would please stand and be recognized, and so everyone will know who to turn to for assistance should you need it. Please stand. I'd also like to acknowledge Deputy Attorney General James Cole. It's an honor to have you with us here this morning. The Department of Justice remains attentive to the needs of law enforcement, and there is no one as concerned about your practice and the issues facing law enforcement and your agencies and communities as the leadership atop the Justice Department. We're grateful for your stewardship, Mr. Cole, and look forward to your remarks later this morning. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge Mary Lou Leary, Director of the Office of Justice Programs. She is no stranger to the COPS office. She played a major role in a number of the office's early successes. She was an acting director, as I recall, and we're fortunate to have her at the helm at OJP. And on a personal note, I will tell you that coming to Washington from outside of Washington can be somewhat of an intimidating experience. And Mary Lou was one of those people who did nothing but go out of her way to make me feel welcome and to sort of introduce me to the realities of the Justice Department in Washington. And I want to thank you for that, Mary Lou, very much. A few weeks ago, the Attorney General Eric Holder, who is out of the country and sends his regrets, by the by, about not being able to be here, was asked a question at a law enforcement summit that he held. He said, someone asked, how can the Department of Justice use its funding components, COPS, OJP, BJA, NIJ, etc., to drive change in law enforcement and to help us deal with the new economy? In a related note in a recent paper called Towards the New Professionalism, Jeremy Travis and Christopher Stone wrote of the need of what they called national coherence. They spoke of the need for a common vision and a common language and a common intellectual foundation about what this profession means. This Justice Department, not just COPS, but the entire Justice Department, all of its components, are committed to achieving this national coherence. This conference and the work this department does every day across this nation strive to that end, to assist America's law enforcement agencies in advancing public safety and equal protection under the law. It is important to remember that for most people in this country, their interaction with law enforcement will be the only interaction with government of which they will be aware. So I think the answer to the question of how our components can drive change can be found here today. Every ingredient needed to facilitate change and promote the evolution of policing is present in this room. A wealth of ideas, a dedication to the job, and an eagerness to implement and advance our work towards safer communities. It would not be a stretch to say that the next best practice, the next advancement, could well be developed here over the next 48 hours. It certainly happened last year, several times over, as a matter of fact. I had the honor of announcing grant awards through our Community Policing Development Program during this program last year to over a dozen agencies, each with a unique, multifaceted approach to problem solving that had national implications. Included on that list was the Houston, Texas Police Department and that department's Teen and Police Service Academy, or TAPS. This project takes the city's most at-risk youth, pairs these kids with officers, and places them within a curriculum based on the most serious of issues: homicide, human trafficking, domestic violence, and drug abuse. I had the privilege of attending their first graduation, the first 32 students to graduate from the TAPS program. That's 32 young adults given a second chance, 32 young adults who remain committed to completing the course, and 32 young adults with a better chance of not becoming a victim or a statistic or a resident within the penal system. And I would also say 32 young adults who walked away from that experience with an entirely different perspective on local law enforcement and on police officers. For our office, it was a small investment that brought positive results. Now, can you imagine that impact if that same opportunity is available throughout other cities in the country? This, in a way, regards the evolution of policing, designing our work and practice not just to respond to issues, but to anticipate cause and determine the impact. That is not altogether an easy task. Many local budgets are still in various degrees of trouble. I've spent the major part of the last 2 years detailing the changes occurring in departments across the country. Last year's conference was actually a precursor to the rollout of the COPS Economic Report, a telling study that detailed a very tumultuous year for law enforcement, highlighted by layoffs, furloughs, hiring freezes, service reductions, and training interruptions. And yet progress continues to be made. Numerous changes have occurred in the field, most of them recently. These changes came in some cases out of will and in many cases out of necessity. These were agencies that found it to be the perfect time to roll out new technologies and services aimed at tracking stolen vehicles, locating drugs and drug-making operations, and increasing officer safety. Other agencies found themselves pinched by funding cuts and made up for it for the loss of personnel and operations by utilizing social media or other contemporary practices to deliver services and feedback to the community. There were still other agencies devastated by major losses in staff and budget that faced near collapse. Pontiac, Michigan, Bangor, Maine, Stockton, California, Nassau County, New York, just to name a few. But service within those regions remains in place, thanks in large part to groundbreaking moves in agency consolidation, regionalization of services, and healthier collaborations with local labor groups with management. In all of those cases, and in every case of every level in between, we can find an evolution in this profession that we serve. Through adaptation and implementation, through growth and progression, agencies that found themselves making the changes they wanted to make in an effort to deliver the level of service they needed to provide. We have arrived at a point in policing where what we did last year will, in all likeliness, not be the same thing we do next year. Our goal here at the COPS office today and throughout the many components within the Department of Justice is to help police agencies across this country and public safety providers of every background, state, local, and tribal, proceed with the evolution of that practice. That, I believe, answers the question posed earlier. The funding components of the Justice Department remain in a unique position to apply a variety of resources that are absolutely capable of driving change and helping each of you deal with the new reality that we face. For the COPS office, our grant programs have helped provide agencies with a major component of implementing change and upgrading service delivery staffing. We have now funded over 120,000 positions, with over 7,000 positions funded just in the last 3 years. And in the spirit of evolution, the program administered this year was different than the program delivered in the prior year, which was shaped differently than the year before that. In variations of our hiring program, we have responded to changes in crime rates to apply focus on decreasing homicide and reducing violent crime. We have adjusted our methodology to help relieve the stress of local budget cuts in some of the most effective areas of the United States. And currently, In response to the President's call to assist the men and women returning from military service in Iraq and Afghanistan, we are managing a hiring program where it is mandatory that officers who were, agencies could hire from one of two categories: officers who had lost their job, or officers who had served 180 days or more of active duty since 9/11 of 2001. It was a charge that we were proud to carry out, and we appreciate the commitments to our veterans expressed by the nearly 1,500 agencies that applied. With the program offered through COPS, we've moved steadily in the direction of problem-focused strategies addressing crime at the neighborhood level. Research has shown time and time again that crime is rarely a city or county-wide problem. It happens on the corner of a particular block, or on a particular street, or in a particular neighborhood. Directing our resources, be they federal funds, new technologies, or advanced training, to the specific problem point is a better business model with the potential to lower crime more quickly and offer stronger fiscal accountability. Regarding the resources available, we again saw an enormous need that exceeded the level of funds on hand. But this is a challenge this office has faced in a majority of its 18 years in operation. I've stated candidly that the COPS office cannot fix local budget problems, but we can provide four-year problem-solving grants to help each of you address the issues that you may be facing. The rise and fall of annual budgets can lead to a hesitation of reaching out to us, and it is widely believed that our office is only effective as the level of money appropriated in each fiscal year. I don't happen to believe that. Our most recent work demonstrates the evolution of this office and how changes in our grant award program can maximize the impact of federal dollars. Earlier this year, the COPS office entered into a collaboration with the Las Vegas Police Department, offering to help in establishing a critical incident response plan to address a number of officers involved shooting. Sheriff Doug Gillespie graciously accepted that assistance, and with a partner funded through the COPS Community Policing Program, we are developing and close to rolling out a model that we believe will aid police departments faced with accidents, disasters, and issues of any making, and provide a way to build stronger community support. As you all well know, a conscientious response is critical to maintaining a productive partnerships with the communities you serve. The COPS office had the opportunity to partner with the Tampa Police Department to showcase the importance of a cooperative response. On June 29, 2010, the Tampa Police Department suffered a tragic loss when two officers were shot and killed during a traffic stop. The suspect fled on foot, and over the next 96 hours, the Tampa Police Department managed a complex response that involved 22 law enforcement agencies and over 1,000 personnel. What they did in the process of that, prior to apprehending the suspect, was to conduct dozens of searches, follow up on hundreds of tips, and do all of that without alienating the community or generating one complaint against the law enforcement agencies for what they did. We were so impressed with that we reached out and coordinated with Tampa to formalize the effort that they put together and to create an after-action report aimed at assisting other agencies in their emergency communication and outreach efforts. And when discussing formalizing policy and practice, I'm always eager to highlight the partnerships we have with Mary Lou and the Office of Justice Programs and the efforts of the Officer Safety and Wellness Group. Growing slightly larger in size and scope with each meeting, this group has eagerly assumed the responsibility of acquiring the best practices and safety measures designed to save the lives of our officers. To date, this group has looked closely at officer shootings and ambushes, traffic safety, and officer suicide. And with each meeting, we find an opportunity to broaden our efforts, increase our communication with the field, and deliver innovative strategies designed to keep the men and women of law enforcement safe. These are projects that mirror numerous endeavors occurring in law enforcement right now. Projects evolving and taking shape as a result of good ideas, strong partnerships, and focused thinking. There is a relevant saying here: we cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails. We at the COPS office discovered that to be true years ago. Elevating our program in the field of community policing involves numerous components, and where there's a shortfall in one component, we work with remaining resources to fill the gap. I see our police and sheriff's department throughout the country doing much the same, and in the process, there have been some incredible innovations. I am very pleased with those initiatives that have been shared with our office, and I, along with COP staff and the partners, am excited to share the details, practices, and service with each of you all week. I want to close by thanking you again for being here, and to say that it's been nearly 3 years since I had the privilege to come to Washington, and I truly do regard it as a privilege. It is a privilege, having spent most of my adult life in local law enforcement, to be of whatever assistance I and the office can be to those of you who are now doing the work of keeping America's communities safe. Thank you again for joining us, and I certainly hope you enjoy the conference. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mary Lou Leary, the Acting Director of Office of Justice Programs. I mentioned earlier how fortunate we are to have Mary Lou with us, and I want to reiterate that before I bring her up. She has had an amazing relationship with law enforcement, the result of a career in criminal justice that spans 30 successful years at the federal, state, and local level. She's truly a natural leader who is most at home here in the Department of Justice. Her tenure here at the department includes service as the Acting Assistant Attorney General for OJP, Deputy Associate Attorney General, and Acting Director of the COPS Office. She is back in the role of Acting Assistant Attorney General, overseeing the most extensive menu of grant programs and services within the Justice Department. Her experience is invaluable, and her support of the COPS Office and community policing has always been appreciated. Please help me welcome our friend and the Acting Assistant Attorney General for OJP, Mary Lou Leary.